Hi students, in this video I'm going to just do one concept, and this concept is on trigonometry functions. We're going to investigate the trigo ratios when the angle theta is in the first, second, third, or the fourth quadrants. Right, so please still till the end because this video is relatively short. Right, let's look at question 1. This is the basic questions, actually O-level questions. It's in the year 2019, paper 1, question 1. Why is it basic? Because the angle theta is acute, and the angle theta is acute. It's in the first quadrant, and we all know that the trigo ratios are all, the values of the trigo ratios are all positive in the first quadrant. Let's do a recap of your ASTC. A meaning that the trigo ratios, the value of the trigo ratios in the first quadrant is between 0 and 90 will be all positive. S means the sine ratio is positive if the angle theta is obtuse. T means the tangent ratio is negative when the angle theta is between 0 to 270. And C means the cosine ratio is positive when the angle theta is between 270 to 360. This is what you mean by ASTC. Alright, so in the first quadrant, all the trigo ratios, the value will be positive. Right, so let's draw the right angle triangle first. So let's start off by having a cross, and then with the first, second, third quadrant indicated there. Right, so the triangle, the right angle triangle will appear in the first quadrant. The right angle triangle, because we're talking about trigo ratio. Alright, so what we need to do is we need to rewrite cosine theta equals to C. We need to write C as a fraction, so we can write it as C over 1. That's angle theta. Okay, I think I need to erase this because I have something underneath the note. Alright, what is it that we need to take note? Yes, we need to write C as C over 1. So to find the cosine ratio, we take the value on from the adjacent side over the value on the hypo side. Right, so in this case here, you can clearly see that the value for the adjacent side is the letter C, and then the value for the hypo is 1. So let's label it. Okay, just ignore the part 2, it came out too fast, never mind. Okay, right, so this is a right angle triangle. Right, so what we need to find is the opposite side, so we can use the Pythagoras theorem, which is A equals to square root of C squared minus B squared. Alright. Okay, right, so using Pythagoras theorem is a basic concept, so if you're not too sure how to do it, please revise it. Okay, so we have all the information needed already. Now we can go on to find the values for tangent theta, which is just a trigo ratio for the value from the opposite side over the adjacent side, which is just square root 1 minus C squared over C. Alright, then for the, okay, let's look at part 2. Right, it came out a long time ago already. Alright, why do I put the arrow there? Okay, I put this arrow here to help you to remember. Okay, cosecant theta is actually equals to 1 over sine theta. And you just need to look at the third letter. The third letter is the letter S, right? So S, it's the first letter of the word sine. So this is equals to 1 over sine theta, which is 1 divided by sine theta, it's opposite over hypo, so which is square root 1 minus C squared over 1. And then you just have to flip this, change the division to multiplication, change the division to multiplication, and flip these fractions, and then the answer is 1 over square root 1 minus C squared. Okay. Right, let's look at the next question. This one is slightly harder. Why slightly harder? Because it involves two different angles, angle A and angle B. However, you're told that both angles are in the second quadrant. Oh, so this is quite what do you call that? In case in the questions you're not told that in the second quadrant, then how do you go about finding it yourself? Right, so let's look at sine A equals to half. Half is a positive value. So if you were to recall your ASTC, the sine ratio is positive in the first and the second quadrant. Right, so for sine A to be half, the angle can happen. The angle meaning angle A can come from first quadrant, can also come from the second quadrant, right? Actually, this A is 30 degrees, sine 30 is half, sine 150 is also half, right? So tangent B is a negative value, means this B, the angle B can come from the second or the fourth quadrant. So since both this angle must come from the same quadrant, right? So we can see that it definitely have to come from the second quadrant, no? Because it's the intersection. First, second intersect with second, fourth. The intersection point is actually the second one. Okay, so it comes from the second quadrant. So let's draw the diagram. All right. So sine A is equals to half. That's angle A, and sine is equals to the opposite over hypo. Now this hypo actually, this is your hypo, and this hypo is actually the radius of your unit circle, and the radius is always positive, right? The radius is always positive, so the hypo is always positive value. Okay, why do I say that? Because I'm going to show you, not show you. What happened is that I need to find the adjacent side, right? Then if you look at the diagram, you will see that the adjacent side, it's the other end. Okay, this cross actually will remind you of the coordinate axis where this one here is your origin, which is 0, and then this part here, it's positive value. This one, it's positive value. This is negative, and here is negative. So therefore, you see that I need to put a negative value there. All right, it's very important to put a negative value there. So you use Pythagoras theorem to find the adjacent side, which is square root of 2 squared minus 1 squared, and that gives you square root 3. But because we are talking about the second quadrant, and then the x coordinates is negative, okay, in the second quadrant, that's why you need to put the negative there. All right, so this is very important. This is very important. You have to take note of this. Okay, let's draw the diagram for angle B. Right, so yes, and we're going to rewrite negative square root 3 as negative square root 3 over 1. That's angle B, yes. All right, so the opposite, okay, if you look at this, this is the opposite side, and this opposite side, it's positive. So hence, it has to be square root 3. Adjacent must be negative, so negative 1. So when you label the sides of the triangle, you need to be careful. Okay, yeah, if it's above the x-axis, it's positive. Below the x-axis is negative. If it's on the right side of your y-axis, it's positive. On the left is negative. Okay, so let's label it. Yeah. Okay. Right, then you can use Pythagoras theorem to find your hypo, which is just square root. You square your square root 3 plus square your negative 1 and square root it. That gives you 2. Okay, so with all this information, we can go on to find our part I, which I'm going to erase this. Okay, but I want to put the arrow there to remind you. It's very important. All right, let's look at how we can do part I. Okay, so write cosine A as write cosine A over cosine B as cosine A divided by B cosine B. So cosine A will be adjacent, so that's negative square root 3 over 2 A over H. And then cosine B will be negative 1 over 2. Right, and then change the division sign to multiplication, flip this fractions. Right, and that's, you will get square root 3 for part I. Let's look at part 2. Right, so for part 2, you can find the values of cosine A from the second diagram, cosine B from the first diagram. sine A from the second diagram, sine B from the first diagram, and then you're supposed to find the exact value, so do not use a calculator to. Alright, let's look at this question here. This question, if you look at it carefully, you're not given which quadrant the angle theta is coming from, so we have to dig it out ourselves. So let's go back to your basic concept. What is the basic concept? The basic concept basically is just your ASTC, because this is the one that helps us determine which quadrants we need to draw the triangle. So for cosine theta to be negative, then the angle will have to come from the second or the third quadrant. And for sine theta to be negative, the angle has to come from the third or the fourth quadrant. Alright, so the intersection quadrants will be the third quadrant. So let's draw the diagram in the third quadrant. Alright, if you're not too sure how to draw the diagram, you just remember a ribbon like that. Okay, a ribbon. Alright, so that will help you to draw how the shapes of the right angle triangle. Okay, that's labeled the 90 degrees. Right, so sine theta is negative half. So negative half will be opposite over hypo. Now your hypo refers to this one here. The hypo is actually the radius of your unit circle, so it's always positive. So that will be positive 2. And yes, that line is below the x-axis negative, so the negative will go there. And the hypo is positive. And then we can use Pythagoras theorem to find the adjacent side. But be careful, because the adjacent side here, this is negative, right? So you need to put a negative sign. Yes, that's angle theta. So you need to put, okay, so you need to put a negative sign there, which is very important. This one here, very important. Okay, so that will gives you a square root of 2 squared minus bracket. Make sure you bracket a negative 1 squared. Okay, and then that will gives you negative square root 3. So with this value, all right, if I'm speaking too fast, let me show it again. So this is the side that you want to find this guy here, right? Let's call it A. So A is equals to square root of C squared minus B squared. So the value of C is 2, so that's 2 squared minus bracket, because your B is negative 1, so bracket negative 1 squared. So that gives you that gives you square root 3. Right, but remember we're saying that it's happened at the other side of your y-axis. That's why you need a negative there. Okay, so with this we can find cotangent theta. Right, so cotangent theta, look at the third letter. T stands for tangent, so it's 1 over tangent theta. So 1 divided by tangent theta. So tangent theta is opposite over adjacent. That's negative 1 over negative square root 3. So that gives you square root 3. So secant theta, third letter is a letter C. So it's 1 over cos theta. 1 divided by cos theta. Right, cos is A over H. Negative square root 3 over 2. Change the division sign to multiplication. Flip the. And we need to rationalize it. Okay. You flip this guy, you will get negative 2 over square root 3. But we have to rationalize it to make the denominator an integer. Okay, so we have done enough questions. So this is the last one, and if you were to make a guess, you're right. We'll be drawing the diagram in the fourth quadrant. All right. So how do we know it's in the fourth quadrant? Let's analyze the trigo ratio. Sine A is negative 2/3, so that will happen in which quadrant? Yes, third or fourth. Cosine B is positive. So which quadrants do you think cosine the angle B? Which quadrant do you think the angle B is coming from? Positive. Correct. First and the fourth. Right, so the intersection quadrant will be the fourth one. Right, so let's draw the diagram in the fourth quadrant. Okay, all right. So the first one is angle A. All right, beautiful. So it's opposite over hypo. All right, so your hypo is happen to be the radius, so it's positive 3. And then the opposite is negative 2. Okay, use Pythagoras theorem. Find the adjacent side. All right, and you see that there's no negative value because this one is positive. Okay, on the right hand side of your y-axis is positive, on the left is negative. Let's look at the second diagram. Cosine B 3/5. Cosine it's adjacent over hypo, so both values are positive, positive 3, positive 5. And then you can use Pythagoras theorem to find the adjacent side and look at what we have here. Make sure you put the negative there, because this length is actually below the x-axis, so it's a negative value. Okay, with that we can find part I, which I've already shown you the answer a long time ago. Something wrong with the animation, but never mind. So cosine A, it's adjacent over hypo, so square root 5 over 3. Then tangent B will be opposite over, you have to look at the second diagram for the angle B, opposite, which is negative 4 over adjacent 3. Alright, so it kind of makes sense. Why it makes sense? Because cosine, where cosine angle A is positive, when the angle A is come from the fourth quadrant, under your, this is one way to check your answer also. See? Right, so cosine has to be positive when the angle is in the fourth quadrant, so it's a positive value. And of course, tangent is negative, okay, if the angle is in the fourth quadrant. All right, okay, so, right. So okay, we're relatively fast. We took about 15 minutes to finish just one concept. Okay, so watch out for the next video.